So what we're going to do right now is we're going to start with introductions. I want to know who you are and how long you've been together. We'll start with Era and Claudia.
So we are Era and Claudia, dearly known as Clara. And we've been together for 11 years in June, married for 7 years in May. And yeah, is that what you wanted to know?
Absolutely.
Okay, we're Niluja and Anthony, and we have been married for 5 years and together for 6 years, actually 7 this December.
Yeah.
How did you guys meet?
So it was after a work party, December 9th,
That's a good story.
6 years ago.
December 5th.
Fifth. I'm sorry.
You got the date right though.
That's great. That's 1 month after your birthday. Like
Yeah.
literally 1 month after your birthday. Her birthday's on November the 11th. So I was after a work party. I had gone to another. Sorry, I said 9th again. December 5th after
So
work.
nervous.
December 5th after a work party. I just wanted to get away and listen to some music, and we're at this party, and she came up to me and was like, "Do you want to dance?" And
I came up to him.
yeah, she came up to me and
I'm
asked,
the aggressor.
yeah,
That sounds
"Do you
about
want
right.
to dance?" And it was like, "Sure." we can
So
dance."
in that moment when she came to ask you to dance, how did you feel? What was that spark in her eyes that told you, "Hey, I'm going to entertain this dance"?
And I don't know if it was a spark at the moment, like our relationship grew through conversation and through experience versus a instantaneous combustible spark. But it was the courage that it would take for someone to come up to another person, guy or girl, in a party and ask them to dance. I think that was something that sort of piqued my interest, if you will.
Hey, that's awesome. So how about you two down there?
It seems like we have a common theme there. I went up to Era, likewise. We met at a mix and mingle event at U of T. And shout out to Biji Ravi Raj for throwing it. I still give her like so many mad props for throwing that event, because if it wasn't for her and her crew of friends or whomever did it with her, like I wouldn't have met Era. But yeah, it was an event and I saw him. I still remember it was June 5th, 2010, Anthony. And
Thanks.
you're welcome. And he was wearing a blue shirt. And I said, "Oh, I like the guy in the blue shirt." And I was there with my cousin and she was like, "Oh yeah, go for it." But he didn't talk to me all night long. Like I was like, "Oh, like what's going on here?" And so finally, like the dance floor opened and I went up to him and I had said, like, "Your name is the first 3 letters of my last name." And he was like, "What?" And I had to say that ridiculous pickup line again. And then he was like, "Oh, okay." And so we started up like this conversation. And 3 weeks later, he told me he never heard what I said. He was just like, "Oh, she cute." But I was like, "Oh my gosh," like I said the most embarrassing thing, but he didn't even hear it. So the thing that got him, I guess I'll let him take it from there.
Yeah, I think
Yes.
I think the thing that got me, just like Anthony was kind of saying, was number one, like she was forward, and I guess I like women that are confident. And number two was we were talking and like, I don't know, I think it's like most people talk about superficial stuff, or like we kind of talked about a superficial topic, but she brought up something specific in basketball. I think at that time it was like the NBA playoffs. And then she brought up like Alvin Gentry talking to Kobe Bryant during this moment in the Phoenix Suns Lakers series. And I was like, the hell? Like nobody really knows about this. And like this girl is like breaking it down in detail. So I was like, wow, like I was very impressed because obviously I'm a big basketball fan. So yeah, that just piqued my interest and just kind of her like confidence in general. And obviously she looks fine. So yeah.
So Era, she described you as having a blue shirt. So
Oh.
what was she wearing?
She was wearing a black dress with a red flower in her hair, and like she had dimples. So I remember like exactly what she was wearing. I think Facebook helped because I think they posted photos, and I think when Facebook does like that anniversary thing, it's like 8 years ago you're at this event or whatever, and I got to see the photo and I just remembered. I'm like, oh yeah, like it just reminds you of kind of the moment. So.
But in Anthony's case, what other than her coming to ask you to dance throughout that night, was there this one thing that really just said, "Hey, I want to see you more than just tonight.
Yeah, you have a fetish for like nerds, basically.
Well, intellectual people, yes, definitely.
Because I had to find the truth a little bit.
Yeah,
Because he did say to me, so what do you do anyway? Thinking like I was just a little girl or something. Actually, I'm doing my PhD in mathematics, which was the little fudge of a truth because I was doing my master's at the time. But you could have seen his eyes just lit up like.
yeah,
It was very surprising.
absolutely. And I remember so I had like this thing, if you didn't live downtown, like I wouldn't engage in conversation because I didn't believe that anybody who was actually brown and intelligent lived downtown. And so I was like, my second question was, you know, where do you live? And she said downtown. I'm like, what? Turns out, yeah, fast forward a couple months into it, she literally lived like 3 blocks from me. Like we could walk to each other's condos. It was that close.
Crazy.
And we did. We did. Yeah.
So those walks of shame must have been really short. That's awesome.
They were short.
Grab breakfast on the way, some Timmy's, you know, to go. That's that's hilarious to hear. It's true though. Like sometimes I think of I know if we're talking about the brown population downtown, it can seem very scarce at times.
Absolutely.
So that's a good observation. So we obviously have that night that you guys met and what stood out to each other. But going forward, how did you know? And I'll start with Claudia in this case. How did you know that this was actually something that's serious? So we're talking not in the first couple days because it's that honeymoon phase, right? Like, how did you know that you wanted to actually stick around for this guy who I know is late on first dates?
I'm really upset that you asked me the question out of the 4 of us because that was one of the questions that I'm kind of like I don't really remember like when I knew that
That's good.
The real deal. But I can say I don't know to my fault or not, I'm a serial monogamist. So I was like looking for something serious that night. I actually facetiously told everybody I knew, I'm going to meet my husband on this night, like the day of the event. I told my friends at school, I told my parents, I told people like I'm going to this event and I'm going to meet my husband. Just because I thought like, oh, it's a potential like event. It's a venue full of like young professional Sri Lankan Tamils, and yeah, so I knew that like we got along, like you know, we've gone on several dates and things were going well. I don't really know when I knew it was serious, but I know that our parents met each other about 2 years in. So that means I would have known that it was something serious probably shortly before that.
Okay. How about you, Era? Let's just complete this coupling right now.
I would say very early on, I knew that it would be, there was a good chance that it would be serious. She was just very forward in general, like in terms of, I think on our 3rd or 4th date, it was like, we were talking about something and it was just kind of like all related to kind of towards marriage. So this is like date number 3, but like she was just very forward and I guess I wasn't turned off by it. And I think the moment it became like more real, even though I knew before that was that awkward first meeting between our parents. I remembered, I think it was at like some like Sri Lankan buffet. I forgot what it's called. And it was just like, because Anjapar, yeah, like my parents were, they're very quiet. But luckily like my siblings were there and they kind of filled like kind of the silence because they're like talkative. And then like her parents, so like my mom doesn't say anything. My dad says a few words. So basically, you know, it's just like Claudia kicking me under the table every time there's some kind of silence.
Like, let's wrap it up.
Let's wrap it up.
Get out of here.
Wrap this up.
But like that made it real. So yeah.
Yeah. So like, yeah, sometimes it is hard to tell when it is real, but when you actually put into motion the meeting of the parents, then well, of course, especially coming from our culture, that is the important step. Tips to anyone who hasn't done this yet or they're going to do this. You guys said it right. You better have siblings. I hope you have siblings because if they're there, it really makes it a good time. If they're not, it's super awkward and someone's going to have to serve tea to the other family. And if there are some weird gender roles going on, you might not want to do that. So it's archaic and weird sometimes. So if you have siblings or cousins, just bring them in there. Just even a best friend that your parents know, just bring them in there.
Do it in
Uh,
public. Do it in a public spot, not in a home, so you can like
You can
leave.
leave ASAP.
So there's a time limit, right? Like Claudia's like, let's wrap it up. What about you, Anthony? Like, how did you know? When did you know?
Why don't we let Michelle go first on this one?
Yeah.
Hey, sure, that's up to you.
And it's funny because it's completely opposite kind of from Claudia, because I was totally, well, a week before our good friend for all of us, Gaj, I was out with him, and I had told him exactly a week before we met that like, this is impossible. I am never going to find someone that I am so insanely attracted to intellectually and physically. Like, it's never going to happen in one package. I've dated people who are very intellectual, and then I've dated people who are just only had the looks, but no one had the package. So I just said, you know, it's not going to happen. I'm just going to enjoy my life. But then I met Anthony, and it was just everything in one package. Like his thoughts were just hooked me in. He was the first person I've ever met in my entire life that could keep my interest and you know, just stimulate my mind. So it was amazing, but I had to do the opposite of what Claudia said. Like, I literally had to wake up every day and say, you know what, this might not be my husband, but it's okay, because this is just the universe telling me that what I said was not out there is actually out there. So if it doesn't work out between us, you know, there's just going to be something better. So I had to actively tell myself that this might not be my husband, but just enjoy the time we have together. So I knew right from day one, like, this is the guy I wanted, but I'm not going to get my hopes up. And he took a little longer.
I think Michelle's being a little modest. I mean, she did not mention your biceps once during that whole time, Anthony.
Oh man. For me, a couple of things. I don't know how to follow that up, but as a few things, she kept doing little things. There's like three things that really stand out to me when you ask me, like, when did I know? And so the first thing, obviously, she lived downtown.
Location matters. It's like real estate. Location.
Yeah. Check. I think I went to go pick her up early, and the second thing, I went to go pick her up early for one of the dates that we were going on.
Oh, Claudia's gonna like this.
And then, so you get to, like, I didn't knock, but you hear like this soca music playing in the background. So I'm like,
blasting
okay,
down the hallway.
you know, somebody on her floor must listen to soca. And I get closer to her door, and it's coming from her apartment. And I still didn't believe, so I put my ear to the door, and it's hers. I'm like, well, this is odd. Like, she's Sri Lankan and she's listening to like soca music, like loudly. So I'm like, okay, sure, knock on the door. And yeah, she didn't even tell me she liked soca at that point. She was like, oh, okay, sorry, turn up. We went on our date. And then the third thing that she did is she always finds little ways to make things very thoughtful. And she had bought me, I just finished writing a PMP exam or something. It was like some exam. And she had bought me this, you remember the charm, the book charm? The book charm. Yeah, she had bought, and I love like charms. Like, you'll ever see me with bracelets, I have like charms on my bracelets. And she had bought me one. I'm like, who is this person? Because
we actually spent our dating life studying together, because I had to finish my master's and he was finishing up some courses. So we actually went to the library every
And I love
Saturday.
that. Like, if anybody who knows me, like, in front of a laptop
she has a serious nerd.
like learning, I could do that nonstop. And so when we were dating, actually, it was, I said, you know what? I'm not going to invest too much into that. Like her, and I think even to this day, we enjoy each other's company. We cherish the time we have together. Not so much that we'll be apart, but you never know. Life is short, and you never know. And we had a bunch of theories, like hit by the bus theory and the happiness theory, so these theories. So we always appreciate that. But long story short, it was those three things that she did. And there was one that really pissed me off that she did on monk debates that I knew, because I like debates as well. She led a debate, and they went to the monk debate when Malcolm Gladwell was there, and she didn't tell me. And I lived right down the street, and we were dating. She took Calpin.
Because I had my own life.
Yeah, she didn't want. There's a collision of universes, right? Like in Seinfeld.
Separate.
Yeah.
But hold on, Ari. Just finish that one. I'm in tech, right? And
that's true.
You want to tell them the topic that was going on with Malcolm Gladwell? Do you remember? Because I didn't. I do.
Oh yeah.
State surveillance, okay? And they had a general who was from the NSA, from the United States, was there, and Malcolm Gladwell. What a topic to take me to, who's in tech and likes these things, and not even a thought. Yeah, she really did like me.
She liked you just enough to keep you on the boundary, just for that. She didn't want to include you. That's amazing. I have the same thing with my wife, where I go back and I nitpick at some random events in our past, where I just bring up like times where she clearly messed up, and she's like, "Why are you still talking about that?" But I think that's funny that she didn't include you. I truly think that's funny.
In my opinion, it wasn't messing up, because I think part of the reason he was so attracted to me is like I didn't want to do everything with him. I wanted to do lots of things with my friends, and we had a rule to only see each other like a maximum of once a week. And I had like a busy schedule going on. And if I think I was the type of woman who just wanted to do everything with him, he would have been so turned off. I wouldn't have had a chance in the world. So as much as he complains about it, that's what attracted him the most.
Oh, you're right. I was just on my own path with that messing up terminology. Obviously, this is much different. And that's a great answer. And that's a great nuanced answer for how you actually respect yourself for your own time, even though you're with someone new in that little honeymoon phase. I mean, it's not, you know how it is when you have a bunch of friends, they meet someone new, they're really excited, but you don't see them for 3 months. And you're like, bro, like, just come out. Yeah. And that's sometimes super disrespectful in a way, but it's really like how you take it, right? It's really up to that friend group. You're obviously at this point, you're both married, as in both couples. So everything's obviously working in the best way that it can be. You got the gallery wall behind you guys. Everything's great. If you were to tell someone your ideas on how important it is to know yourself to find a partner, what would you say?
With dating, one of the things that I learned, especially kind of going to the relationship that I had with Claudia, was exactly what you pointed out earlier, where like people would get into a relationship and they would disappear for like months. Like you would hang out with them, all of a sudden they're gone. I didn't want to be that friend. So like for me, I think kind of like what Michelle was doing with like Anthony, where I would, like me and Claudia, I think at the beginning saw each other like once a week, because I want to have my own interests. Like I look at it as a relationship of two people coming together, but like they're individuals. So like it's not like we do every single thing together. Like what would I be telling Claudia for doing every single thing together? So I made it like a point to kind of have my own interests, my own circle of friends, like things are important to me, so that when we spent time that once a week or like twice a week whenever we got together, like I actually had stuff to share with her, versus like, you know, like I don't know, like when you have nothing new to share, it's kind of boring. Part of like getting into a relationship is kind of bringing that excitement or something new that, you know, the other person might find interesting about you, or things get stale pretty quickly. So does that answer your question? I feel like,
yeah, it's kind of like what you put forth, right? That's something that you felt passionate about without even maybe knowing it. It's like something you brought to the relationship, but without even knowing it, and you didn't even know you were going to be in a relationship. So
yeah, it was just kind of an observation that I saw with other friends.
Yeah.
That like, if I get into a relationship, I don't want to be like that.
Yes, that's perfect.
And I think that's something we talk about a lot, that we want to pass on to our daughters. Like we don't want to raise them with the same notion I was brought up with, that, you know, go to school, be successful, but then find someone right away. Like even though, you know, we found ourselves and when we were younger in relationships, it just, you don't know who you are. You don't know what you like or what you don't like. You don't know what you're passionate about. So like, I'm personally going to tell my two girls that I don't want to know about anyone or see anyone. I want to know that you know what you love about this world, about this life. Like I want you to define what makes you happy before I hear anything about a relationship, because I think it's so easy when you're young in a relationship to kind of morph into the other person, or go to the other person for comfort, and then your likes become their likes, and you don't know where you stop and they begin. And I think it's just so important. I had the privilege, I think, of having 2.5 years before I met you of just being single and focusing on myself. And now looking back, I think that's the only reason I was able to get a man like this is because, and I didn't stop when I met him. Like I had really, really built up confidence on what I like in this world and who I wanted to be around, that, you know, you become a force when you really, really know yourself.
I think just the other day, just to add to that, I think ours on the same track. I think it's the other day we said to each other, what do you like about one another? And to answer your questions, you allow me to be myself. Like you're not trying to be the other person or please the other person. And so knowing yourself and figuring out what you like and what you dislike, and being content in that. No one can alter that state. There's no one going to add more. There's no one going to remove anything. I think that's very important, that you are confident in yourself and happy with the life that you've already created for yourself before you try to figure out who you're going to, you know, share it with. Not partner, but you're going to share this with somebody, right?
And I think that's why we were able to, like, we met and got married within a year, but we just really knew who that other person was. And like, I knew how to support him in his happiness, but on his own individual path. And he knew what I wanted. And it was just so easy to like make that decision to spend our lives together, because we're both on individual tracks,
We just had that theory.
heading in the same direction.
Yeah. So we had a lot of theories. We can relate back to a lot of this because we explored, I think, for months, the theory of happiness, and we drew on it out. And she has that math background. We were trying to map it out, and that was one of our theories. You know, two individual trains on separate tracks, and one might be ahead, one might be behind. We might be parallel, but we're heading in the same direction. So at no point in time do we impede one another, but we're all both heading in the same direction.
I like that.
Yeah, don't play charades with these two. They'll come up with formulas and stuff that only they'll know. You're treading along this line of that people sometimes talk about, especially in those 90s sitcoms, Friends and Frasier, Seinfeld, some of the, well, maybe not Seinfeld because they're anti-happy endings and everything, but the notion of, is there the one or a soulmate? I mean, it feels like it's such a fake term. You think that something like that exists? Go with Claudia since she hasn't said anything in a while.
I think I used to be unsure about this answer, but I personally think that soulmates don't exist. I think I used to think that they did, but I think it's more so that you could probably click with anybody at any time. It's just dependent on like where you are at that stage in life and how well you kind of mesh with somebody, but also how willing are you to make that work? How much does this person bring things to the table that you seem interested in, and then how much are you willing to make that work? So I don't think soulmates exist, because I think that when I met Era, he was like 9 out of 10 perfect. But like he was like, I had a list of things that like I was probably looking for that, one of the big things for me, he actually didn't meet, but over time, like I was like getting to know him and I'm like, oh, this person has a lot of the same values that I have. And so we were aligned in our value set. And then I was like, okay, well, let's kind of explore a little bit more, but again, don't get my hopes up. Let's proceed and see cautiously where does this go? Like, are we going to align, in order to be together for the long run?
Did you actually have a list of 10 things, or
no,
just,
not actually 10 things. It's maybe more like 7.
7? That did anyone else have some sort of like, what was like a must-have? Did anyone have a must-have or like a top 3 things? Like Arrows was clearly something to do with basketball. I would say that's more of a bonus.
Yeah, I think a big thing for me was somebody that was empathetic, because I feel like I am, and I feel like in order to be in a good relationship, you have to be able to disagree well, I feel like a lot of people are afraid to disagree in a relationship, like friendships, like romantic relationships. So I felt like somebody that had empathy, or like I was just able to communicate with well, would be someone that I could be in a long-term relationship with. So yeah, I think that was like a big one for me.
Yeah, I know we're kind of overlapping with what you guys all wanted, but did Anthony, Michelle, did you have any like top 3 must-haves or anything like that?
Well, the top number one, and Ari, you called this after only a few weeks of.
I do remember this.
and that's what I knew when I joined Tamil culture, that I had really found like a group. I'd found the right group of friends, because just within a few weeks of meeting Ari and Ara and Shiv and so many people, it's like you called out exactly what I needed in a partner, more so than people I had known for decades. So, and Ari, you said like you need someone that you can just like lie down in a field, watch the clouds, and talk for hours. And that's exactly this guy. I could talk to him for, and we did, for every restaurant we went to.
Closed down a few restaurants.
Closed down, and we spent hours and hours just talking and talking. But more so than that, even though like that's a plus, that we have to tell the girls to be quiet so we can talk sometimes.
Your time's over. It's adult time now.
Mommy and daddy talking time. But I just needed someone I could respect. Like for me in a relationship, sometimes I can get a little bit just overbearing. I needed someone I could really respect, and who could, I just need someone to respect in all sense of the word. And, I respect his opinions. I respect his decisions. I respect everything about him. And so it makes it so easy when we have disagreements or anything to just always be respectful and do it in a respectful way. And I think that's the number one thing. But we do have similar values and everything, but to make it work, just the way we speak to each other, the way we disagree with each other, the way we just talk to each other in general, it's just always respectful.
Yeah, I have a more defined checklist, Art, to answer your question.
I know it's in your pocket. Take it out.
Yeah, take it out. Those 3 things I had mentioned. If you live downtown, the second, that was a check. And there's literally 3. There's literally 3. It was live downtown, own a piece of property, because life is not easy. Like, just to keep it real, like life is difficult. So you own a piece of property. And then the third one, be ambitious, which she had an abundance. Although the Malcolm Gladwell does still hurt. She was hurt. I love the fact that she wasn't clingy. In all past relationships, people are clingy, and you become, they're everything. And like you said before, you begin to, lose your own friends because you're spending so much time with the other person. And people interpret that as, oh, you're not getting along if you're not spending, 90% of the week with that person. And the fact that she had Tamil culture, she was doing her master's, she was editing and writing, she had Tamil debates, diaspora debates. All of these things going on for her made her even that more attractive to me. It was like, that's exactly what I need, because I always had my things going on as well. And I wanted a woman who's independent, beautiful, because confident.
I had no time to spend with him. That's what made me the winner.
it made great conversation. We could lie down in that field and look at the stars and the sun come up for days on end, years on end, if we had to.
I love that both of you couples all met at a party too, because I think sometimes people are wondering, especially in today's world, like, where do you meet people, right? Whether it's online or at a party. And I think sometimes parties can be daunting, but I think it's a great to, suss out the noise and be like, hey, that person's walking towards me. What do I do? All right, I'll just listen, and hopefully it'll work out.
And that's probably makes it easier if things don't work out. Like, obviously in our cases it worked out, but if something had gone wrong, when you have so much going for you, there's so much to distract you from the fact that it didn't work out or keep you busy, and things you put your passion and your soul into. So it's not, your relationship is not the end all be all. I don't think it should be.
Yeah, I think one of the things we discussed early on too, just to add to that point, is that person you find is not going to be your everything, and that's okay, right? Like, they won't be the one that, Claudia and Ara is the exception, that wants to go to the basketball game with you, right, and yell. But that's okay. That's okay to be not that person, right? Like, that's okay. I think often people misinterpret that. Like if you're not sitting there bored for somebody who doesn't want to be at a sporting event, oh, then you don't like me, or that we can't get along because you don't want to sit beside me watching something or doing something that you don't want to do, and vice versa. So I think that's an often a misconception. Having your own world and being busy is okay.
Although he is the only man that I did go to a basketball game for, like, and I suffered through.
She might have had a book, but I don't know.
I did have a book.
Yeah.
What was the book?
I don't
Malcolm
remember.
Gladwell.
Probably, yeah. But she has an interesting theory on basketball and sports in general, and she calls it what it is. It's called ball and hoop. And when she says that, it destroys sport altogether, because literally that's all it is: ball, hoop. Now tell me, where's the the skill in ball and hoop? Where's the mastery in ball?
I think the other couple really has to respond to this.
Sorry.
Claudia's eyes are bigger than my face.
Well, you know what? I'm not a hockey fan anymore. I used to be when I was younger, but I'll use hockey to dispute your ball and hoop theory, because there's so much skill. Like, think of somebody who is on skates and then they're stick handling and they're going super fast, and then they score like a little black puck, like beyond this like big goalie who has all this padding like into the net. Like, that requires a lot of skill and mastery.
Oh, it definitely does. It's just not enough to engage me is what my point was.
Yeah.
My theory was more, nothing's not going to get me to stop reading my book.
But I'd also add in sport, like whether it's basketball and football is a big one that people that kind of overlook how complex and how intelligent the game is. But with basketball, it's not just like putting a ball in a hoop. There's like so much, like there's a reason why a guy like LeBron James is great, because not just because he's a phenomenal like physical specimen, but like, depending on the game, or like, what the score is, who's guarding him, like there's like so many different scenarios that you have to like be able to think about and put these facts together in your mind in real time. I think sport is like a great thing to kind of teach strategy. I think football, I think, is a big one, because
It's all chess match.
like Claudia like didn't get football at the beginning. Then when I explained it to her, she's like, wow, this is actually like really like
it's the hardest one.
Yeah.
Well, it's we play ultimate frisbee, and it's a lot like ultimate frisbee. So because of that, I was able to understand the routes. But another argument, against this is that, why is there a coach then? Like, if it's just ball and hoop, then you don't need a coach, but a coach is designing these plays, and it's based on the opposing team and the matchups, and like it's like chess, really. So I mean, we could keep going, but we'll stop.
How about this? Obviously, Michelle is just saying that it's not engaging enough for her, but I think sports is the one thing in life that you can't know the ending to. So you watch a romantic comedy, you watch a movie, you're like, the good person wins at the end, usually 90% of the time. But for sports, like it's a football saying, any given Sunday, anything can happen. What about the story? The Patriots were undefeated. Any given, like, then they lost, and so many people lost money in their bets, but nobody's trying to convince you to watch sports here, Michelle. That's not what I'm doing. I am saying to all the other people who don't watch sports, that is the draw, because I've actually had this conversation with other people who don't like sports, and they're like, I don't get it. I don't get what the point is. It's rigged anyway. Like, the bigger team with more money is going to win, or whatever the Hollywood narrative is going to play out, right? So, or the big city or something.
But I think the point is, like, for girls out there who don't like it, like, he used to play football. He loves football. He loves sports, but that doesn't mean, that your partner has to.
Yes,
exactly.
For all the people like me.
That's what I was telling Ara before. His bonus in that list of things that are must-wants is the fact that Claudia loves sports and loves to watch it with it. And that is, well, what a bonus, right? What a bonus.
We watch it all the time. When we started dating, you would never have a sports game on.
I never had a sports game on, and it was funny. So I was fascinated with the brain and learning. And so savants, before they were called Asperger's.
Or just every documentary imaginable.
We can geek out on this, quantum physics, because me and Chris used to talk about it.
So mostly I was like, finally a guy I don't have to watch sports with. I can watch documentaries.
Watch quantum entanglement. So I think those things really interesting. And it was she would ask me, like, what am I doing? And I'm doing this. And it was incredible.
And I thought he was lying.
Yeah. And she didn't tell me that she used to work at SAC. And so I thought, okay, wow, she actually's interested in the stuff that I'm interested in. And she had this background in learning and education and autism and the brain. And I'm like, she told me that after, I believe, or as we were approaching marriage, she told me that. She told me that earlier. Who knows? We could have got married like 2 months later.
2 months later, I mean, come on, it was only like 4 months later. I think before we end this on a good and positive note with maybe some advice, because you guys are clearly experts, I want to know, maybe this is all in good fun, but like, what annoys you about the other person?
That's a loaded question.
I'm not going first on that one. All you.
Well, no, my wife's not here, but what annoys me about her is that my smallest mistake will create a mountain of problems. and suddenly it's the end of the world, and there's nothing that I can do now to rectify this. Right. So sometimes that happens, and I come from a very laissez-faire whatever attitude. So that obviously, from my relationship, she's on the other end. Things are a little more structured, whereas I'm a little more, well, like, if the sweater's on the floor, it'll get to the hamper when it gets there. That's just a good example. I'm not saying that's what's happening, but that's kind of the issue here.
I have a good one.
Oh,
I have a really good one. I have 2 little girls. So I carried these girls cumulatively for 18 months. 18 months. And they love their daddy like 5 million times more than me, and will choose him over everything. And I can cook them dinner Monday to Friday, but daddy's chocolate chip pancakes on Saturday morning trumps everything. Like they just adore their father, and that bugs the hell out of me.
I feel you. Like, I know that our daughter is very young. She's only 5 months old, but she loves this man. He walks into the room and it's like a celebrity sighting. Her smile is bigger than it's been with me all day, Michelle. Like, I look at her and I'm like, are you serious? And I'm like, thank God, like, I was given a son, because he looks at me like I am his world, and I'm so grateful, because she makes me feel so bad. And I was like, how am I upset with a 5-month-old?
Right, and I have times 2 that. Oh, awful.
These are not the real answers I was looking for, but these are interesting, actually.
I'll go
true, Ari. They're true.
It's kind of hard to. I was caught off guard with this question because you didn't email it in advance, but
that is true.
That one of the things that annoys me about Era, and I haven't admitted this to him, is that anytime we disagree, or we're having a disagreement, he's so good at it. Like, he's logical, he's well thought out, he's rational, and it annoys me because often I'm going to lose, like, the disagreement.
What that was like? What is that? Like the compliment sandwich? Here's a compliment. You're really good at arguing. You're logical.
I'm stubborn.
But it's really annoying though. Like, it's really annoying if you're trying to win. Like, if you're trying to, well, we're very competitive, as you can.
I love how it's about winning and losing. That's the best part that I've learned today.
Trying to get your point across.
It's funny. I think it's like the small things. It's not like these big things. I think we've kind of worked that out. I think it's like the small things. Like, one thing that annoys me, it starts off as like a small little fight and sometimes it escalates, is like when we're trying to choose to do something, whether it's like watch a movie together or like what food to eat like on the weekend. It's like such a big process, and it annoys me because for me, I'm like, let's just decide on something and do it. For her, it's like it takes an hour to decide. She's got much better at it, but like it used to be like this small thing that would escalate, and still sometimes does, into this big thing where we like get so mad at each other and like we don't talk to each other for like an hour. But it's about the dumbest thing, like what food do you want to order, or what movie do you want to watch? And yeah, I'm just like a very decisive person, so when she's not decisive about it, it's like a dumb thing, but it can sometimes escalate. So yeah.
Go with one. Now that she's reminding me of all the greatness but one of the things, she can multitask. So when we work in the evening times, she'll watch like the Kardashians, And
Just.
she can watch anything. Like she's gonna watch something on TV. She's gonna have her laptop and she's gonna have her phone, and she's gonna be able to work and be productive. And I have to be in a silent room. So it annoys me the fact she's like, babe, just come and sit down and work with me. I'm like, babes, I can't be like in front of the TV and my laptop and you on your phone. And then she'll talk to me, but she's productive. Like she's doing stuff, and I'm like, babe, I've written one sentence. I probably read 2 words. It's been 4 hours. I'm like, I can't do this. So it annoys the hell out of me that she is able to do that. And I have to go in a room. I gotta put headphones on. I gotta be silent. No one can talk to me. I gotta be in the zone, right? Destroy a book, and I'm on page 10, and I'm like, geez, 4
Oh,
hours.
yeah, I know that game.
Me too, Anthony. I feel you.
I love how you
sometimes
guys are
don't-
raising
I
your hands.
sometimes don't believe that he's read like the card that I wrote him for Christmas or his birthday, because I'm like, how'd you read it so fast? And like, it's just like, he's like, oh, thanks, that was really nice. But like, he's not so fast to read.
Yeah, that's super annoying.
What do you think is the most important thing you would say to someone either dating or about to date to a successful relationship?
I would say, looking back, I would advise, like say, like our kids, I would tell them, hey, when two people get into a relationship, it's 2 flawed people getting into a relationship. I think talking to people that are like dating, etc., not to say they have like, I guess, unrealistic expectations, but maybe some of them do. And that whether it's from social media or like these movies you watch, like you kind of think, you know, life is like this perfect thing, you know, like find this person like under the stars in like Paris or whatever. It's like you don't know where you'll meet this person, but like number 2 is like you guys both have your own issues that you're gonna be working through even after you get together. So that's number 1. Number 2 is try to commit to like learning about somebody before quickly dismissing people. I feel like dating apps, especially like in this day and age, or just kind of the nature of dating, and because of how many people you have access to, it makes it really easy at the first sign of trouble to look for somebody else. Like just kind of drop this person. So I would just say, you know, expect the other person to be as flawed as you, and try to commit before giving up on something too early.
Yeah, I like that one. Or I like that one a lot. That flawed piece. I think don't compromise. I would think. So I build on it. If I add to that, because I love your answer. I think that's a great one. But I think don't compromise. That if a person smokes and you don't like smoking, then they're not going to change. And don't expect them to change for you. Be that person. So don't compromise your values, your beliefs, your likes, your dislikes for anybody, because they're yours. And don't expect anyone to compromise theirs for you in the same way. So I say don't compromise.
Good one.
Yeah, it's funny because I was gonna say sometimes you do have to compromise, but but not to the big ones. Like there are certain things, and it's hard to figure out. Like if someone's a smoker and they are chain smoking, then they're not gonna stop, and you don't want to be through that process. Maybe you don't want to kiss an ashtray, maybe. But sometimes I think some smaller things, they're not intrinsic. They're not tied to their behavior. It's just what they're going through right now. That's where I would say. But you know, that's a whole other thing, right? But it's still a good answer because you still have to put your foot down with what you want to, no matter what your age.
And like I love to contradict Era. I think especially coming from like a Tamil female background, in the way we're often raised is to find someone, work hard at it, and you should be with one person. And I think I'm totally throwing that out the window with my girls. I'm going to tell them, date a lot of people, date a lot, a lot. I want you to really figure out, apart from actually dating, what you like and dislike in this world. I want you to really know yourself, but I also want you to have experience in so many different types of people. So when you find the one, you can be as decisive as I was when I met your dad, because I had dated a lot of people. So I knew exactly all the things I didn't want. I experienced all the things I didn't want. So when I found what I wanted, I knew.
I'll just
a lot.
I'll just correct you. I didn't say to stick with the first person you find. It was really, it was more so like work through, like if you like somebody, like try to stick through things versus kind of giving up at the first sign of trouble. But like I agree with you about the advice I would give my daughter or like my son. Date, like unlike what our parents told us, I'd be like, date, but maybe don't show us who this person is until you're a bit serious about them, but date, because it's a trial and error process. So I am not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying, more so, it's more so kind of the sticking through of things.
And I'll go on top of that to agree with you about I don't want to meet anyone either, because I think sometimes when you introduce your significant other to your parents, it puts a lot of unnecessary pressure, because you feel like, shoot, I don't like this person anymore, but my parents like him, and I've made that big step, and I'm going to tell my kids that it doesn't matter. I'm always going to be here to support you. If you want to end a relationship, if you want to walk away from anything in this world, I will always be here for you. So I don't want that pressure on them. I don't want to meet anyone until, the day before they want to marry them.
That's but if we're gonna talk about how our parents raised us versus how we're gonna potentially raise our kids, wouldn't you say that that's something that that the old school mentality is, don't bring anyone home unless you're serious? Because in other cultures, it seems, especially on TV, I'm talking about TV as a culture here because it kind of raises us too, right? It seems like in those families, the teenagers bring like boys and girls home like every 2 weeks, right? And is that something that you think would be supported by you?
But sometimes, like, why do you bring them home? You want your parents' approval. You want them to fit in and play house with the family. When it's kind of when you hit a sign of trouble or you find a red flag, it makes it very hard to walk away. And I just really want my kids to know that relationships are experiences, but nothing should stop. We should not be preventing you from ever walking away from something. I think it takes great courage to know what you want in this world and what you don't want. Life is way too short to live in a miserable way. And I think you had a lot of experiences where he was the boyfriend who was always at his girlfriend's houses. So hearing those experiences, like from his perspective, it's a lot of pressure on both ends.
Yeah.
I just had a quick funny story about it was really funny because like when I first introduced Claudia, like we had the formal sit down, but before that, my dad had this like Christmas party for his like business, and he invited like his friends, and like our whole family went. So I thought it was a good idea to invite Claudia. I didn't really tell my dad. It was more so like Claudia came, and then I'd be like, my dad. I was like, up a month. By the way, this is my friend Claudia. But like, I never brought any female friends home, so it was like girlfriend that was a friend, and they kind of knew it. So it was just really funny because she just showed up, and like it was kind of like rush hour, like that scene when he walks into kind of the karaoke thing, and like everyone's like looking at Chris Tucker. It was like that with Claudia, where like I walked in and everyone was like who's this girl? Like we've never seen Era with like a girl at a family party before. So yeah, it was just funny.
Yeah, you should have known what you were getting yourself into. But that is a slick move. I know a lot of people. I think my brother has done that. A lot of people have done it. Hey, I've even done that. Never mind. But it is a slick move. Shell?
Funny story too. And actually you were there, Ari, because you were taping. I was holding, I think, our second debate for diaspora debate.
All right.
And so I invited my parents, and I invited my boyfriend, who I had only been dating for a few months, and just they were in the same room, and I was just gonna leave it at that. And my mom was like, she'd seen a picture and she was all excited. But my dad still speaks to this day that he was so impressed because Anthony came over to them and introduced himself. And right from that second on, my dad was just so impressed and was in love with him because he had taken the time and respected him enough to come over to say hi, even though he knew that we had only been dating like 2 months at that point. So
good man.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, her dad's like super cool, like undercover super cool, loves the Raptors, loves Rihanna, like crazy.
What's Rihanna? That's so random.
Well, no, funny story. So we're sitting there, me and Pat, one night we're sitting there, he calls us up. He's like, got 2 extra tickets to Rihanna. You guys want to go? So, who does that? We're like,
Go on the dark tour.
We're not even, I was just dating her at the time, and he's like,
no, we were
married?
Yeah, we were
Are you
pregnant.
sure? Oh, whatever.
Whirlwind.
Rihanna.
One thing you know is that you were downtown. I mean, that's the one thing.
Oh, me and Pan, and me and my best friend. You had 2 extra tickets. Me and my best friend. It wasn't like my best friend came. It was me, Pan, and yeah.
Okay.
Anyways.
Well, I just want to thank you for coming onto this show, because I know you have a busy schedule, and kind of airing out it's not even dirty laundry, it's clean laundry, because everything was super positive, and that's what we want to hear in today's world, especially with this year and everything. So thank you very much. You don't need any last words unless you want to say hi to your moms, but there we go.
Thank you, Ari.
Thank you, Ari.
All right.
Thanks,